You're gonna be next.
Welcome to storyflix. In this video, we will explain 28 Days Later. This movie tells the story of a bike courier who wakes up from a coma and finds his city all but deserted. On the run from the zombie-like victims of the rage, he stumbles upon a group of survivors on a perilous journey to what they hope will be safety. Will they find a place with no zombies? Let's find out in 28 Days Later. 28 Days Later begins with footage from television that broadcasts the great riots that swept across many places worldwide. A chimpanzee was seen watching the television show, bound and locked up in a research room. Then, someone wearing a mask tries to free the chimpanzee by unlocking the access lock. He and his group intend to free all the chimpanzees, which are the research object in the research building. A scientist tries to prevent the group by warning them that the chimpanzees here have been infected with a dangerous and deadly virus, called the rage virus. The activists did not believe the scientist's words, then opened one of the chimpanzee's cages. Instantly, the animal attacked a female activist, and soon, the woman turned into a zombie and killed everyone there. 28 days later, a man named Jim finally woke up after lying in a coma for a long time in a hospital. Jim came out of his room and was shocked because the hospital situation was so messy that he found no one there. He tried to call, but the line had been cut. He then collected a few cans of drinks scattered on the floor and then left the hospital. Not only in the hospital, it turns out that the atmosphere throughout the city of London also looks quiet and messy. Jim swung step by step down the city streets, but the signs of life remained unseen as he screamed at the top of his lungs. He kept walking, scavenging for money lying on the street, until his feet carried him to a church. He gaped at the scene in the church, human bodies strewn across the chairs and covered almost all sides. Jim chirps, "Hello," then suddenly some of the corpses that have become zombies wake up, and a priest runs from a door. The priest, who had turned into a zombie, attacked him, but he escaped by hitting him with his heavy plastic bag. Jim then fled outside, but the priest caught up with him. He was later rescued by two survivors named Mark and Selena in this precarious situation. They then took Jim to their hiding place. Selena tells Jim that the entire town has been infected with a deadly blood-borne virus. The virus originated in a small village but spread so quickly that it infected entire cities in England. British government fell. Neither the police nor the army is capable of fighting this deadly virus. Even reportedly, the virus has spread to Paris and New York. Horror creeps up on Jim as he contemplates the possibility of the zombies killing his parents. A frustrated Jim begs to come home to check on his parents' condition. Mark agreed, but on one condition: they will only travel during the day because zombies only hunt at night. After traveling a few hours, they arrived at Jim's parents' house in Deptford. Jim finds his parents in their room, lying lifeless in bed. He also realized that his parents chose to end their lives by drinking poison rather than becoming zombies. Jim then grabbed a photo of himself as a child that was in his mother's arms. He could not hold back tears when he read the last message of his mother on the back of the photo. They then decided to stay at Jim's house because it was nightfall. Mark then told his story. At that time, he was about to board a plane with his father and sister. But the virus has spread very fast, and many people have turned into zombies. They started attacking people at the airport, and only Mark survived without turning into a zombie. Jim was watching a video of his parents when suddenly a fat man barged into his house and knocked him down. The fat man who had turned into a zombie tried to prey on him, but Mark and Selena arrived just in time. They fought the zombie and managed to kill it. Unfortunately, Mark was bitten by the zombie. Selena couldn't help but kill her partner before he turned into a full-fledged zombie and attacked them. Jim and Selena immediately left Jim's parents' house. Selena tells Jim that they only have 20 seconds to get infected, then turn into zombies. That is the reason why the spread of this virus is very fast and deadly. While searching for a new hiding place, Jim sees a small light in an apartment building. They decided to go there. The building looked empty as they walked up the stairs on each floor. But then, swarms of zombies came from all directions while they were resting. The two of them hurriedly ran upstairs to avoid the zombie attacks. Zombies almost surround them, but they are rescued by someone dressed like a riot squad, complete with his shield, weapon, and helmet. That guy managed to repulse the zombies' attacks and get them to safety. The person who helped them was a taxi driver named Frank. He lives in an apartment with his daughter, Hannah. Frank was thrilled to meet Jim and Selena because he had never seen a survivor other than himself and Hannah. He also invited them to celebrate this rare moment. Frank told them that the water supply was running low because it hadn't rained for 10 days. While on the roof, Jim manages to catch a military radio broadcast saying that a military base in Manchester offers protection to survivors of the rage virus. Frank invites Jim and Selena and his daughter to go to Manchester by taxi. A swarm of zombies intercepts Frank's taxi as it enters the tunnel. Frank stepped on the gas, crashing and crushing the zombies mercilessly. His actions seemed to bring other problems. The car tire burst while they were still in the tunnel. There's no more profitable option than changing the tires quickly before the zombie hordes come back. Frank and Hannah immediately acted quickly, and finally, they made it out of the tunnel safely. They then arrive at an abandoned supermarket. Without thinking, Frank and the others grabbed the groceries and items needed for supplies for the trip. They went back on their way. Frank noticed that his taxi ran out of gas and decided to fill up with gas from a gas truck parked near a fast food restaurant. Jim, who idly entered the restaurant, was suddenly attacked by a child zombie. But he managed to beat him, and they all quickly left from there. Frank and his group decided to rest in the ruins area, which had a large expanse of land. They relieved fatigue, hunger, and thirst after going through a strenuous and long journey. Jim and Selena then walked around the area, sharing stories and discussing the next steps they would take after all this. Selena, who was taken aback by Jim's words, gave him a light kiss on the cheek. Frank, Jim, Selena, and Hannah then spend the night there and continue their journey tomorrow. Jim suddenly woke up in the morning and found no one nearby. He called everyone, but no one answered. When he was frustrated, he finally woke up and realized that it was all a dream. He then continued to sleep until he was awakened by the loud honk of Frank's taxi ready to drive. They finally arrived in the city of Manchester. Everyone was very surprised to see the city engulfed in flames from a distance. Frank continued to drive his taxi down the deserted streets until he finally arrived at a military base. As far as they drove, there were only abandoned military trucks and vehicles. There wasn't a single person there. Frank and the others then got out of the car to investigate what had happened at the place they said could give them protection. Frank was resting when he noticed a crow eating a dead zombie hanging from the metal frame of the ceiling of a warehouse. He approached the crow because he was very disturbed by its loud voice. He then kicked the tin door connected to the iron frame, hoping to get rid of the crow. But unlucky, a drop of zombie blood from above fell right into his eye. Hannah, who saw the incident, then approached her father. But Frank immediately pushed her and said that he loved her very much. The next second, Frank had turned into a zombie and started attacking them. Jim was about to kill Frank, but he was overcome with doubt because Frank had been so good to him all along. When no one could kill Frank, suddenly, a soldier came and shot Frank to death. Jim, Selena, and Hannah are then taken to the army headquarters. Major Henry West, the leader of the army, welcomed Jim and the others with open arms. Henry even took Jim around their fort and explained a few things about the defense systems to fight and defend against zombie attacks. Jim meets with Jones, the soldier in charge of preparing food for the camp residents, and Mailer, a soldier infected with the virus 2 days ago. Mailers are chained on the page for research material. Dinner time arrived. One of the soldiers named Farrell expressed his opinion that the growth of the human population is very fast. Although there is a deadly virus that can kill half the world's population, the human population will rise again significantly one day. Unfortunately, their dinner party had to be interrupted due to a zombie attack. The soldiers immediately took up arms against the hordes of zombies. The bloody battle that night was finally won by the soldiers. Upon returning from the battlefield, a soldier named Mitchell was about to harass Selena. Jim arrived just in time and tried to help her, but Jim is outclassed and outnumbered against Mitchell and his friends. Farrell then came and hit Mitchell in the head. Jim and Farrell would almost have gotten into a fight with Mitchell when Major Henry came and intervened. Henry then ordered his subordinates to return to their respective duties. Jim then asked Selena to return to her room. After everyone has left, Henry tells Jim that his goal now is to start a new life by multiplying offspring so that the human population can return to normal as it used to be. Henry deliberately sends the radio broadcast to attract the attention of female survivors so that he and his soldiers can use Selena and Hannah to produce offspring. Jim then goes to Selena and Hannah's room to save them, but his actions were known by Henry and his men. They managed to catch Jim and lock him in the dungeon. It turned out that Jim was not the only one in prison. Farrell, who had previously helped Jim get into the prison early. Farrell tells Jim that they locked him up because he disapproves of Henry and his associates' plan to enslave female survivors to satisfy their sexual desires. The next morning, Jim and Farrell are taken to the woods to be executed by Mitchell and Jones. When he got there, Jones seemed hesitant to shoot Jim. The shot missed and hit Mitchell's ear instead. Jim and Farrell took the opportunity to escape. Jim hides among the scattered corpses while Farrell flees into the woods. Jim managed to escape beyond the camp area of the soldiers, but he finally collapsed from the pain and exhaustion that racked his body. In his desperation, he looked up at the sky and saw an airplane flying across the horizon, indicating that there was still life out there. A glimmer of hope resurfaced in him. Meanwhile, Selena and Hannah were forced to take off their clothes and change into the prepared gowns at the soldiers' stronghold. Hannah thrashed about in tears, begging them not to harass her. Seeing the girl's fear, Selena tried to help by persuading the soldier to release Hannah. Selena then gave a drug to Hannah and told her that it would make her feel nothing when they did their lewd act on her. But one of the soldiers managed to realize Selena's plan and slapped her. Not long after, an alarm blared. Jim deliberately sets off the alarm to distract the soldiers. Henry mobilized several of his men to kill Jim. They scattered throughout the base area, but Jim managed to kill Henry's men one by one until only the major was left alive. Henry quickly got into the car, but Jim had already cut the starter wire. Henry immediately left from there when a flock of zombies started to attack him. It rained heavily at night. Jim managed to arrive at headquarters and tried to find the whereabouts of Selena and Hannah. Jim then freed Mailer, and the army zombies began to go out looking for prey. Hearing a strange commotion, Mitchell then ordered Jones and another soldier to keep an eye on the dressed Selena and Hannah while he went to check on the situation. The soldiers were irritated by Hannah, who was constantly blabbering about being under Selena's drug. Then, the Mailer zombies suddenly burst in through the window and attacked one of the soldiers there. Selena and Hannah left to escape but instead met with Mitchell. When they were caught off guard, Hannah managed to escape and left Selena. Elsewhere, Jones finally emerges from hiding after making sure no Mailer zombies are hanging around nearby. But alas, he met Jim at the door, and he did not hesitate to stab Jones in the stomach. Jim then went upstairs to find Selena and Hannah. Major Henry arrives at the base and finds Jones lying limply covered in blood. Hannah rushed to her room to take a photo of herself and her parents. But then, a zombie suddenly burst into the room, but she managed to hide behind a large mirror. Jim found Selena, who was being held captive by Mitchell. He immediately attacked Mitchell repeatedly until died. Selena, who thought that Jim had turned into a zombie, tried to attack him. Jim told her that he was still a human. Unbeknownst to them, Hannah, sneaking up behind Jim, suddenly attacked his head because she thought Jim would hurt Selena. After knowing that Jim was fine, the three immediately went outside. Unexpectedly, Henry was already in Frank's taxi when Jim and the others were about to get into the car. He shot Jim until he collapsed. But unexpected help came from the Mailer zombie who broke through the back window of the car. Mailer then pounced on Henry and pulled him out of the car. The three immediately got into the car while the zombie Mailer was still busy with his mare. Hannah quickly started the engine and drove away from Henry's base, which the zombies overran. In their escape, Selena tries to save Jim, who is very badly injured due to heavy blood loss. 28 days later, Jim finally woke up in a bed after being in a coma for a long time. He saw Selena sewing her red dress and Hannah spreading a very wide white cloth in the vast meadow. When Jim walked over to Selena, who was sewing, Hannah rushed into the house and told her two friends that a plane was flying in the sky. The three hurriedly ran outside and spread out white cloths that said hello while waving their hands, hoping the flight crew could see their sign. Jim, Selena, and Hannah looked at each other and smiled in relief when they saw the plane turning towards their location. The film ends.